Well, we continue live from Peoria, Arizona, side of the Mariners spring training, and we get a chance. It's a perfect way to open up our time here, Dave, is to speak to one of our favorite guys. We talk to him every year, always just really, really gracious with his time. Logan Gilbert is here with us, man. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Good to be back. Good to be talking to you guys. Thanks for having me on.
You know, what's funny is we were here last year, and when we tell stories about our time here last year and what we saw, my favorite is always to talk about you. You were always the first one out here. You were the last one we'd see leave, maybe outside of Ichiro. And, I mean, just your desire to get better is something I absolutely respect. People give you a hard time about the bag of trinkets and all that, but the amount of work you put in, has that increased this year? Do you change it at all? Do you feel like, okay, I should be able to do as much and not as much time? Because you spent a lot of time out here.
Right. Yeah, I do, definitely. Not as much as Ichiro, like you said. He's probably number one, but I'm probably up there. The last couple of years for me, it's been interesting. I think I've gotten smarter with it, and I try to be as efficient as possible and just, like, knowing what I need but not doing anything more than that just for the sake of it. I pretty much got here just by – I wanted to be the hardest worker. I was always that way, or trying to be. And then when you get here, it's like it only matters how you feel on the fifth day when you go out there and take the ball and all that stuff. So, like, you can work as hard as you want in the season, but there's also repercussions if you go over that, and that's why I talk about the efficiency of, like, knowing how to get the most out of it as quickly as possible. Not for the sake of laziness or anything, just, like, for my body to perform and be at 100% on game day.
Yeah, so how do you decide what activity you're going to drop? If it's something, how do you decide, like, that doesn't feel like it's working for me, or is it a feel thing?
It's a little bit of that. It's a fine line. Like, sometimes I group things together that kind of accomplish the same thing, or cut down my reps from, like, in the off season, maybe I do each drill like 6 throws, and in season I only do 3 throws. But I know that if I feel it, I feel good, and I don't really need to do anything more if I already know that I'm feeling good about it. Yeah. A lot of it comes down to just trusting yourself and knowing that I've put in the work. So I've been talking to Byrne, the mental skills guy, about that, and just knowing, like, trust yourself. Everybody here is really good, and believe that I have everything that I need.
Yeah. We talked to your guy. We had him on the show, Randy Sullivan, from the CEO of the Armory.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
It's a great name
for
the play. But we talked to him about you, and he was talking. He's been working with you since you were a teenager, and told him the same story about your work ethic and the time you put in. He goes, yeah, that's how he's been since he's known you. Is that where did that come from? Is that just your parents, your upbringing? Because if that's how you were when he first got to you, it was instilled, I guess, as a kid, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. It was my parents, they've always been that way. My dad's a very hard worker, my mom as well. My older brother, I really look up to him. He's that way. Going back to, like, high school, I thought I was a position player, and I wasn't. I wasn't good enough. I got cut from teams.
What position?
First and third, catcher, and
catcher.
JV high school baseball. Yeah.
Too tall for a catcher.
Imagine that. But I always wanted to make it here and believed I would, but it wasn't really looking like it. And then I was kind of given this roadmap on how to get better, and Randy was a huge part of that. Cleaned up my arm pain, all that stuff, bumped my velo up and all this stuff. So it was laid out for me that, like, if you want to make it, it's possible. And I always wanted to, but I didn't really know if I had a way to do that. Once that became available, I was all in. I'm like, there's no excuses. I have a way to make it. I'm going to do everything I can. And ever since then, it's just like that's how I'm wired, and that's what I do.
Yeah, that was impressive because he told us that you didn't feel good about accepting the scholarship because you could only throw every 7 days, and for a kid to be thinking that way, I mean that's pretty amazing. Hey, I want to hear about the visit from Scott Servais this year.
Oh yeah,
that you got, and we know you went to the leaders, you being one of them, and tell us, like, were you surprised by that, and then kind of what did you guys talk about? What'd you do?
Yeah, it means a lot that he would do that, and it's nice to see him in the off season and outside of the field and all that, and just be able to talk and, like, about the direction of the team, about life, about baseball, just everything. So it says a lot. It means a lot to me, and I think there's a lot of trust there from the players and the coaching staff, the front office, and that's part of it, building that trust, building that honesty. And honestly, you don't really have to let the players in on anything if you don't want to, like direction-wise or whatever. I think it says a lot, the transparency that he would do that and include me in it as well. And trying to see myself as that leader and him seeing me that way, and just doing everything I can to buy in as well and be part of that.
Did you know what he wanted to talk to you about? Did he give you a heads up, or he just said, "Hey, I'm in town. Where you at? Let's talk"?
Yeah, he sent me a text. He said he'd be in Florida. He went to Julio's place in Tampa, and then mine's like an hour from there. So we were trying to make it work and line up the right day, and it happened to work out. So it was great.
So you knew what it was about, for the most part.
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, some of it was just him seeing where I train and all that, and being like talking to Randy and understanding all that side of it. And then, like, just going out to lunch afterward, like casual stuff, but also just talking about, like, where the team is at, the division, what we're trying to do, goals, all that kind of stuff.
So if it was me and my coach was coming, I would have thought I was in trouble.
You would have thought you were getting cut.
Yeah.
I was hoping not. Yeah.
Hey, so anything new that you're working on this year that you're trying to master? You talked about kicking certain things out, but anything new? And then, with your repertoire as far as pitches go?
The main thing at this point, I mean, it's always location and consistency, especially at the major league level. That's like where you see the elite guys, the best of the best. So I'm always working on that and trying to clean it up. I don't think you ever finish that or check that box necessarily, because there's always more in the tank. As far as my pitches, I was messing around with a cutter a little bit, messing around with a two-seam. I'm trying it in spring training just to see what it is. But most of my pitches have stayed the same otherwise. My curveball, I tweaked a tiny bit, but not like a completely different pitch. Yeah. So a lot of it at this point is just fine-tuning.
Hey, how much do you follow rumors? I don't know if you're a social media guy in the offseason, but there's all this speculation about what the Mariners are going to do. And if they're going to be able to bring bats in, they're going to have to give up maybe one of the two young guys, Miller or Wu. Your name came up a number of times. Well, if they traded Logan, they could get a ton back, and we're all sitting there going, no, you don't do that. But
yeah.
It was part of the conversation that was going on. Nobody's saying it was going to happen, but speculating.
Yeah.
If they want to do this is the kind of talent you're going to have to give up.
Yeah.
Were you aware of your name ever being mentioned? Did people talk to you about that?
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about it. I've seen a little bit. I think that's what happens when there's no baseball on TV and people just like cook up all this stuff.
They're left to their own devices.
Yeah. Last year, it was weird during the season when you hear a little bit about it, and that was kind of the first time for me. But then you just kind of understand the business side of it, and I love being here, the relationships I have here with the front office. That's the business side. Like, people get traded eventually. Hopefully it's not me. I want to stay here my whole career. I really do. But I understand that there's going to be rumors, and like, to get something good, you have to give up something good. That's just part of it.
Well, you just hit on what I wanted to ask you. On one hand, maybe it's a little uncomfortable, but on the other hand, is it kind of flattering to hear that, yeah, if you want to get this quality of bat, you're going to have to give up a Logan Gilbert level. I mean, it's kind of praise for you, obviously.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Giving something to get something. Same thing with Bryce and Wu. I think it says a lot about them as well, and what they've proven just in 3/4 of a season or almost a full season, that they're worth so much as well. So thankfully the front office, I think, was really creative this offseason in how to put the best lineup together and try to keep our staff together as well. Too bad that Robbie's gone. Like, he's really hard to replace just as a person and what he brings to the clubhouse. But it's
Marco as well. Yeah.
Marco, and what he's done for me, especially back in 21, like right when I got up and trying to find my footing. And but it's nice that we have that starting rotation still together.
So what about Haniger and Polanco and Garver? Tell us what those guys bring to the team. Seems like I've heard that all of those guys are great dudes, and we've always talked about what a great team this is, just personality wise. But tell us what those guys add.
Yeah. Experience, confidence, their presence, the way they carry themselves, all of them. I think that says a lot, and just the attitude of the team and what the hitting is all about as well. Garver, the World Series experience. Polanco's hitting 2 bombs a game right now, so it's pretty amazing. Haniger, probably the most dialed in as far as like every aspect of getting better. I always thought that I was that way. Few people that I like really impressed me. Tom Murphy was one of them. Haniger's another one. He, like, everything you can do to take advantage of your time in this game, I think he's doing it. So that says a lot.
How do you feel about this offseason compared to last offseason? Because last offseason was coming off the playoff run, and everybody's excited about getting, wow, finally broke the curse, and here we go. And then the acquisitions weren't what a lot of people, I'll raise my hand, were hoping for, and it didn't work out. This offseason, as you mentioned, they got creative when we were hearing that the budget wasn't what they thought it was going to be, yet they were able to bring in Haniger, Garver, Polanco. How do you feel about what they were able to do this year compared to last offseason?
It says a lot. Like I said, I think it was really creative how they went about it, because it seemed like right away it was either, okay, are we just not going to do anything? And then it was really tough at first because you lose Gino, it was kind of like dumping a couple guys, and that didn't really look the best either. But then I think I understood, and everybody else eventually understood, fans included, that we started slowly adding pieces, and so it was kind of like rearranging the roster, and I think they went about it in a really smart and creative way, because I wasn't expecting half the things that they did, but then you get to spring training and see the team that we have, and I think we look really good.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
certainly. Hey, so what kind of leader are you? And I don't know. I remember we were talking to France one time, and he's like, "This is like your second year," and he's like, "Yeah, Logan's getting a little froggy. He's starting to kind of, chime in and stuff." Because I remember that as a rookie, I just didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And then the second year, third year, you start to feel like that. Is that where you are? And then what kind of are you a lead by example guy?
Yeah, definitely by example. I don't see myself as just like to stand in front of the room in front of 40 people and try to fire everybody out.
Right.
I mean, baseball is kind of tough to be that way anyways. That's not really the game the way the game's wired. For me, especially like having young pitchers on the staff as well, I see myself really relational and trying to like buy into people's lives and who they are and care about them. And that's what meant the most to me when I was getting started in the league. And I think back to James Paxton was a big one. Robbie was a big one when he came over, Marco, all these guys, that it wasn't just like trying to get you better at baseball. It was like they actually cared about you as a person.
Yeah.
That helped you buy into the team to feel like you belong and then play your best. So I just go back to like what stood out to me, what meant the most to me. I'm trying to do that to the next people. You'll have to ask them if I'm actually doing a good job at it, but that's how I see myself, especially with the young pitchers on the team.
Now, everybody likes to bust your chops about the bag of toys that you use, all the contraptions. But I also picture in my mind behind the scenes other pitchers coming up to you going, "Hey man, can I try that? What's that? Can I try one of those?" Do you get them, whether it's the young guys or maybe even some of the more experienced guys, going, "Hey, show me that"?
Yeah,
they're curious about.
I think a lot of people eventually get curious enough to ask. Most people at this level, I would say, have their routine dialed in to where they're not searching for things necessarily. I think some of it's just becoming more popular going around the business or the player development side. So some of the guys on the minor league side I see doing some of the things that I'm doing, and I've never talked to them, but
the same
water stuff like activation stuff, things like that. I haven't seen that one yet, actually,
okay.
But I have people in the off season ask me about it too, pro guys, minor league guys. So if there's a purpose to it, if it actually helps you get better, I think guys are at least curious enough to ask.
I think you had a quote this year, the off season, where you said, "Everybody knows all the goofy things I do," or something like that.
Basically,
you were making fun of yourself.
Basically,
so you don't need other people to make fun
At
of you.
first, it stood out a ton to people. Now I do the weirdest things, and people just walk by me and don't even look because it's like that's just what I do.
Yeah, well, it's working, man. How about your life off the field? How much does that help? With family and everything that you're going forward. Is that a little bit of a boost for you?
Yeah, definitely. Everything's going well. Life's great. A year and a half into marriage, having her with me last year for the first full season, not just doing long distance anymore. Like, that's amazing. It's a huge support system for me. Having my family come out to games, just everything like that off the field, that means so much. You play 6 months of baseball every day nonstop. It's easy to get just like tunnel vision, as you should be, but it's nice to have the support system outside of it.
How much time do you take off when the last day of the season, whenever it is for you? Do you say, "All right, I'm taking 2 weeks, I'm not doing a thing," or are you working out? What's your process like as soon as the season ends?
Depends when we end. We ended a little sooner this past year than we were probably planning on, so I ended up with like 5 weeks of no throw, and then middle of November I started throwing again. I'll usually take like a week, maybe 2 off of like weights and working out. But I try to give my arm a little bit of a break and then hop back into it.
We always hear, for pitchers, you're working on stuff during spring training. How much of that is true? I mean, how many new things come out of this? Do you really are you doing? You said something the other day. There was a quote afterward. You're like, "Yeah, I felt like it was, I had control, but they hit you," and you were like, "That was weird." So, yeah, tell us about that part of it, spring training and working on things. Is that truly what you're doing?
It's a balance, and I feel like as you get closer to season, you try to just do what's natural a little bit more. So it's kind of a spectrum, but a couple years ago, I was more like, I have to prove myself every time. That's always in the back of my head, proving myself, but also having a little bit more freedom of my first start in spring training or second start. Like, if I still want to try a different pitch or tweak something a little bit, I have the freedom to do that, or in midweek bullpens or whatever. We're getting to that point now where I'm not really experimenting anymore. I've felt what I need to feel, and so it slowly becomes more just like, do whatever you need to do to get the hitter out, more so than just spring training experimentation.
Now, you were out there throwing to Savala today. I don't know how much you've been able to work with him prior to today, but how much work is put into developing that chemistry, where obviously I think you and Cal know each other as well as you can know each other.
Yeah.
And, when you're struggling, maybe he knows what pitch to call or how to speak to you. How's that relationship developed with a new guy?
It's been great so far. It's important, especially right now, to have that time. I've gotten to talk to him in bullpens and throw to him. I was glad that he was out there today, so we had that chance to work together. He has a great presence behind the plate. You tell him one thing one time, and he remembers like forever. So my cues, my targets, my setups that I like, he knows already right away. And I felt really comfortable with him back there. I think he understands me well already.
I feel like we understand you well, too, buddy.
Most people don't, so that says a lot.
No,
I want to ask him about some of these new rules, though. I mean, because they shaved a little bit more time off the pitch clock with runners on base.
Yeah.
First of all, how was that adjustment for you last year? I think the fans love it, but obviously the pitchers are the ones that are impacted by it most, so they go from 20 with a runner on to 18 now.
Yeah.
Does that matter to you? Do you feel rushed? How do you feel about the –
In the game, I forget about it, honestly. I'm not crazy about it. I like 20 seconds. I think it's safer at the end of the day for pitchers. But I understand what they're trying to do. Whatever it is, we're professionals. We can adjust to it and make it work. It's really not a huge deal. But I probably wouldn't have chosen to switch it to 18 just because I want a little bit extra time out there. But, I got out there today and didn't even notice.
What about when you say safer, do you mean you feel like it might lead to injury to have fewer seconds to –
Yeah, I don't – it's – we're 1 year into it, so I don't think there's been like really deep studies done or anything. But just logically, I think that I'm not saying 2 less seconds leads to injury, but I would say that keeping the 2 seconds would only make it equal to or safer to have 20 seconds as far as injuries go. So I think it would have been safer to keep it how it is, but not a big deal. I hope that everybody stays healthy. That's the main thing.
Is the PitchCom thing second nature now, or is that still an adjustment for you?
No, I like PitchCom a lot. I
Yeah?
think it's quicker. I want to speed the game up as much as possible. I move quick anyways. I have a pretty quick pace, and the PitchCom definitely helps with that.
Can you put any kind of voice in you want?
I've heard you can. I haven't really changed it, but
is it a guy voice, or is it just what does it say?
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. It sounds like a robot basically.
And it said, what does it say? Like fastball away, or does it give you location?
You can put location if you want, or just the pitch if you want. It's usually like slider down or something like that. It sounds like male Siri, basically.
That's pretty cool. Man, we love talking to you every year, man. We always appreciate how gracious you are with your time, and we really appreciate it. And, of course, we wish you the best this year, man.
Thank you. Yeah, good talking to you guys, too.
Thanks, Logan.